What's up everyone? Today we're going to switch things up a little bit and pivot away from my typical type of video. We're actually going to do a review of the new iPhone 14 Pro. It's going to be a multiple part series. I might condense that all into one video. I might expand it into maybe like a 3-part series. We'll have to see what happens on this little mini trip. I'm in Olympic National Park. I'm currently at Rialto Beach and there's a beautiful marine layer of fog coming through right now. So we're going to break down the specs, we're going to break down the new features, some of my thoughts and opinions on how to maximize this tool for photography, for videography. We're going to compare some images against film. We're going to try to do some editing tutorials. So I'm going to be carrying this thing around for a few days and shooting everything from landscape to portrait, diving into the specs, reviewing some of the files and images, some of the new computational photography elements, and just all the things that Apple has packed into this new phone. I'm excited to have you guys along for this review. Hopefully you find it interesting. I want to make it a little bit unconventional and not quite like all of the other iPhone reviews that are out there on YouTube. We'll see if I can accomplish that, but I'd love to have you along, and let's get started. So I want to immediately start covering the feature that is the reason why many of you are probably looking to upgrade, the feature that makes the most sense from a buyer's perspective, and that has to be the new 48 megapixel, 65% larger sensor on the main camera, the main lens. I would definitely say that that feature deserves a lot of attention and consideration. So additionally, on the main lens, the focal length has been slightly reduced from 26 millimeters on the iPhone 13 Pro to 24 millimeters on the iPhone 14 Pro. This is definitely a much more standardized focal length within photography and video. And I personally welcome that focal length because I'm more used to it. I've shot on 24 millimeter primes on Canon, on Sony, and my eye has just been accustomed to that field of view as I've gotten used to shooting in different environments. So that main lens now features an f1.78 aperture, which is actually slower than the iPhone 13 Pro, but Apple is still claiming 2 times better low light performance on the main lens. And that just comes down to the fact that the sensor is so much bigger. It just has a lot more light gathering capability because of the surface area. So even despite the slightly slower aperture, this camera can perform really well in low light and double what the iPhone 13 was able to do. This is definitely thanks to that larger sensor and Apple's photonic engine. So Apple actually included a 2x mode for the main lens. It's going to crop in on that 40 megapixel sensor and still output at 12 megapixels. I've messed around with it a bit and I think it's definitely an improvement over a 2x crop factor on any older iPhone for sure. I'd still like for them to work on one of those middle focal lengths, something that's more like 35 or 50. You've got that telephoto lens that's right about at 80, I think it's at 77. And the ultra wide is at 13. Personally, for my photography style, I really hover around 35 and 50 for my work. So Apple is kind of leaving me hanging there a little bit, but we'll stay patient, and I'm really hoping for something a little bit more like a 35 or 50 dedicated lens in upcoming iPhones. So we've also received an upgrade to the ultra wide lens. That is now a 13 millimeter f2.2. and Apple is claiming 3 times better low light performance, which in my real world tests, I would say it definitely comes close or equals about that. I'm definitely impressed with the marginal improvement there. It's still not quite the quality that I'm looking for in an ultra wide. It can't really step in or substitute, in my opinion, really quickly for something more like a professional camera. It's pretty noticeable, in my opinion, that it is a phone lens. And while I'm impressed, I still really wish Apple would make that lens a little bit more consistent with the quality of the main lens. I know that's tremendously challenging from an engineering standpoint, but regardless, thank you, Apple, for including some pretty decent improvements on the ultra wide this year. So now to my biggest disappointment with this year's model, and that's the telephoto remains unchanged. It's a great camera, I'm not gonna complain, but I really wish we would have gotten an upgrade to that lens this year. I've found through my testing so far that in decent light, when you're not pushing the lens too hard, you can get gorgeous results. And I've gotten some landscape photos that I absolutely love with that lens. When it's a bit more challenging or demanding in terms of the light or the scene you're shooting, I definitely find the telephoto can struggle a little bit. All that being said, Apple is still claiming 2 times better low light performance for the telephoto. Hey everybody, it was right about at this point in the edit where I noticed things were getting just a little bit stale, so I am going to go ahead and turn this into a 2-part or 3-part series. Part 2 is definitely going to be portraits shot on the iPhone 14 Pro and covering more of cinematic mode, action mode, and some of the stuff that I missed in this first one. But I wanted to keep this one kind of short and sweet, and hopefully it helps you guys out and we have some interest carrying over into part 2, which is my actual main niche in photography, and that's portraits. I'm super excited for this to become more than just one video and have you guys along, so can't wait to work on that in the next couple weeks and do some more footage and photos with the new iPhone. Thanks guys.